Did you know that the average Brit loses out on £500 a year just because they're too embarrassed to haggle?
Well, that makes me above average because I just cut more than £600 off my broadband bills.
That makes me worry about how much you were paying to begin with.
Fair. All it took was a phone call.
Yeah, it's one thing picking up the phone though, isn't it? But a lot of people have a bit of a problem when it's face to face.
We've actually both just been in Morocco, haven't we?
We have been. Separately,
Not
listeners.
together.
Yeah.
I was looking at a gorgeous, colourful little set of tea glasses. We were haggling back and forth, driving a hard bargain. I walked away, I came back, I walked away, I came back.
Very good.
And I did manage to get the price down. I was so chuffed. Turns out, a few dirham, it's only about 36p.
Hello and welcome to Moral Money, the show where we have frank conversations about your cash and the right ways to spend it. I'm Sam Meadows, a personal finance reporter who spends his days and nights sifting through long, incomprehensible pensions consultation documents, just so you don't have to.
And I'm Lauren Davidson, the Telegraph's head of personal finance, and I spend my days sifting through long, incomprehensible, badly written stories by journalists, so you don't have to.
Absolutely outrageous.
Not yours, of course, Sam. Each week on the podcast, we enlist a top Telegraph columnist to delve into two moral money issues sent in by our readers.
We hear from long-lost siblings squabbling over their inheritance, friends who get picky over splitting the bill, and people who get to a Moroccan market and freeze with embarrassment at the idea of haggling. More on that one later.
This week on Moral Money, we are joined by a writer known for throwing her full weight behind an argument. It can backfire, though. She tells us she came to regret writing a piece in June 2016 that urged readers to back Theresa May because she was renowned for getting what she wants. It's the Telegraph's deputy comment editor, Lucy Denyer. Welcome to Moral Money.
Hello. Clearly, I got that one massively wrong about Theresa May.
Yeah, I mean, that one didn't play out as planned.
No, definitely not. Despite the leopard shoes and her no-nonsense attitude, wasn't working for Britain, unfortunately.
Well, you're looking very relaxed. I hear you've been on holiday.
Yes, I had a delightful 10 days in France with my family where I pretty much just ate my body weight in bread and cheese every day, drank a lot of wine, put on about a stone, and generally forgot all about life, which was blissful.
That's a very successful holiday.
Indeed.
Sounds brilliant, but you must be looking to trim the budget.
Definitely, particularly given the parlous state of the euro versus the pound at the moment. It cost us a lot more than perhaps it would have done this time last year. So you always spend more money on holiday than you think, especially if you've got 3 children constantly clamouring for ice cream. And I've also just had to go and buy everyone new school shoes. So, yeah.
So what's your number one tip?
For holidays?
For saving,
or for saving
money.
Oh, gosh. We have recently signed up to a Monzo account for our joint account, and it's quite helpful because it does make you think twice about tapping that card if you're not together because you think they're going to see it.
Yeah, it's true that you get a notification.
And if I'm at work and my husband's on daddy daycare duty, then I know exactly when they've been to Nando's for lunch.
That's the 4th ice cream today.
Exactly.
Well, our first moral money conundrum, sent in by a Telegraph reader, is actually quite appropriate for you then. It's all about holidays. I'll read it out, sent in by a reader from Kent. I've just returned from a holiday to India. It was a wonderful trip, but as with many of the other countries I've travelled in, extreme poverty is evident all around. My husband always insists on haggling, whether in restaurants, hotels or taxis. He says it's a matter of principle that the locals shouldn't rip us off just because we're foreigners. But it makes me feel uncomfortable. Yes, they hike prices for tourists, but it seems stingy to bargain over what often amounts to a few pennies. Am I wrong to feel guilty about haggling? What do you think?
So I'm with this reader in that I also get really uncomfortable about haggling. I'm not a haggler, but my husband is also a massive haggler. And I just have to sort of cover my eyes or go into a different area when he's doing it.
How very British.
It's so British. I mean, he will haggle. He once haggled in Selfridges for some trainers and miraculously managed to get the discount, which was truly amazing. So that's his level of haggle skill. I sort of might ask in a really embarrassed way and then just sort of, when they say no, just go, okay then.
My mum is actually very similar to you. My parents used to live in Nepal, and when I went to visit them, my mum saw this lovely chessboard, a miniature chessboard that at a market that she really liked the look of. And she went over and she started haggling with them, and I think the guy said 1,200 rupees, and then we started walking off and he went, 1,100 rupees, 1,000 rupees. Then he went down to 850 rupees, and then she was like, I'm going to go back. And then she came back and I said, how much did you pay? And she said, 950 rupees.
Sounds like pretty much what I do. I like the results of a haggle. Like, I like to feel that we've saved money, but I'm just not. I'm quite awkward about doing it. But I think maybe it depends on the situation. It depends on where you are on holiday, and I think the situation in which you are doing the haggle. So, are you in a souk or a market, or are you in a restaurant?
Sure. Is it an appropriate
expected place to haggle? And exactly, is it expected? Because I do think in a lot of these areas, the haggle is part of the buying process, which we obviously just don't have here. Like, 5 tomatoes cost £1, and obviously you're not going to haggle in like the co-op. But in a lot of these places, it's part of that buying process. And I also think that it becomes quite clear quickly whether they want to haggle or not. And so sometimes you have to gauge it. But sort of bottom line is, everyone will have a price that they will take for something. And if they don't want to take your haggle, they don't have to.
Exactly. They're not under any coercion to sell you the item if they're going to make a loss on it.
Yeah. So I think reader Chris Kenny sums it up quite well. He says, always haggle, but with a smile on your face. And then he makes the crucial point, you're not going to beat them, but it's just playing the game. I mean, ultimately, they don't often sell for a loss, do they?
No, and I think the smile is really key as well. Like, you don't want to be an idiot here and kind of go in waving your Western cash around, wanting to screw people over. Like, it's a fun. It should be a fun experience. Not if you're me, because I don't like it. But
well, I mean, what do we think about the point here? The husband here says that it's a matter of principle that the locals shouldn't rip you off just because you're a foreigner. What do we think of that opinion?
I kind of feel, I think there is something to be said for the cultural experience of it. If you are shopping in a souk in the Middle East, let's say, they will price products expecting you to haggle the price down. So they haven't priced it thinking this is the amount I need to make on it. But then again, what's wrong with them trying to make a bit of money off tourists? I mean, we come in with a lot of money. We've afforded to pay for a nice hotel with a pool, flights there and back, time off work, and they're selling an item that costs a few quid. Yeah. Good luck to them, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, if tourist prices were kind of millions of pounds more, then sure. But generally, in these instances, it is a matter of a few pounds.
It's very That's a very good point. I mean, I've found myself feeling a bit embarrassed about being in Kenya and then getting very, very annoyed about being overcharged for 50 shillings or something, and I was getting really annoyed and frustrated and like, oh, how can they do that? And then I thought about the exchange rate and realised that was about 30 pence. And
I also think that you yourself will have the price that you're prepared to buy. So just as they will have whatever price they will accept, in your head you might be like, oh, actually I don't want to pay more than a £5 for this or whatever it is. Fine. If you don't want to, again, no one's forcing you to do that.
Yeah. We've spoken here about whether it's wrong to haggle on holiday, but one reader who commented on the original post on the Telegraph website, Matt Galley, points out that actually it's not bad practice to haggle anywhere. I mean, maybe it's not common practice like your husband to walk into Selfridges and demand a discount on a pair of designer trainers. But he says many stated prices, both at home and abroad, are merely the opening gambit in a negotiation. You wouldn't pay the asking price for a fitted kitchen, for a car in the UK, unless you, he says, really do have more money than sense. And that's in a place where it's not even the culture to negotiate. So how, even more so when you're in a place where it's expected to have a bit of back and forth. Yeah. And on the Money Desk, we write about that a lot. I mean, if you've got a Sky subscription, for example, you should be phoning them up every year and trying to get that price down. Your energy bills, anything like that, it's just good sense to be haggling over a price that works for you. I mean,
there is a flip side to this, particularly when it comes to travelling abroad. This point is made by our reader John Ball, who points out that anyone who can, by definition, if you can afford to travel the world and go to these interesting places, you are rich by the standards of global wealth. So he says that actually, his point here, decency requires that you pay a bit more than the locals.
But again, you may still be doing that even in the haggle. So, they might have in their head the kind of Westerner price they would accept. Yeah. And I mean, means you can buy more stuff, do more haggling. You're still spreading the money around. You're still spending it. And it's the smile on your face thing again, isn't it? To do it in a good-natured way. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to haggle and you want to hand the money over, do it.
So, I mean, do we think it's more about balance then? Getting that balance right, not haggling too hard where it's insulting and you're really like pushing them to the bone. But
making it a fun experience. Like, it is part of your holiday. Make it fun. Don't make it about not being screwed over at all costs, because
Yeah,
otherwise that's only
absolutely.
going to ruin your holiday as
Absolutely,
opposed to...
yeah. Don't be me getting very annoyed about being overcharged 20
Yeah.
pence on a bus. Do you agree, Lauren?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as with so many moral money issues that we talk about here, it's about being respectful, isn't it, at the end of the day, about treating those around you courteously. By all means, go for the haggle, but don't be rude about it.
Yeah.
So we did put this question to readers on the post that was on the Telegraph website, and we've got some poll results here. So 59% of people said, yes, you should, but not too hard. Be charitable to those with less than you. Around a third of people said, yes, of course you should haggle. It's patronising to the locals not to play them at their own game. Mm-hmm. And only around 11% said, don't haggle. Don't be so mean. If it makes little difference to you, just pay what they're asking.
Interesting spread there. I wouldn't really think of it as not being patronising, although I guess Monty Python, of course, have the famous sketch which makes that point, don't they?
Go on.
Oh, I don't want to do the impression, but
Do the impression.
in Life of Brian, the aren't you going to haggle? So when he's very surprised that.
Is that when they're
haggle.
buying otters' noses or whatever it is?
A beard, fake beard,
Okay, good.
and he
knowledge.
throws in a gourd.
How much, quick? 20 shekels. Right. What? They were. Wait a minute. What? Well, we're supposed to haggle. No, I've got to get... What do you mean, no? I haven't got time. Well, give it back then. No, I just paid you. What? Yeah. This bloke won't haggle. Won't haggle? All right, do we have to? Now, look, I want 20 for that. I just gave you 20. Now, you telling me that's not worth 20 shekels? No. Look at it. Feel the quality. That's not in your goat. All right, I'll give you 19 then. No. Come on, do it properly. What? Haggle properly. This isn't worth 19. You just said it was worth 20. Oh,
Well, we're going to have to take a break to go and watch that sketch, but stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment when Lucy, Denya, Sam and I will be sinking our teeth into another one of your moral money questions. This time, a listener's keeping a big financial secret from her other half. Right after this.
Hello there, Telegraph podcast listener. My name is Tom Gibbs and I'm the host of our Audio Football Club podcast. If your desire for top football chat isn't sated, then may I please recommend the Telegraph's very own podcast about that subject. Audio Football Club comes out every single Monday and it features some of the best and brightest football minds in the country, taking in all the biggest stories from the Premier League and around Europe. Search for Audio Football Club wherever you get your podcasts or follow the link in the description of this episode. Good things will happen to you if you do so.
We're back with Lucy, Denya, Deputy Comment Editor of The Telegraph, and Sam and myself. And I'm interested to know what you think about this one, Lucy. I've got another moral money conundrum here for you. Do I have to tell my husband about my rainy day fund?
Ooh.
I'll read this letter out. When my husband and I got married, I had some savings that I kept to myself and didn't tell him about. There wasn't a huge amount to begin with, but over time, the pot has become quite a bit more substantive. Occasionally, things crop up that we want to do and we're a bit short. It makes me wonder, should I mention that I could put in a little bit extra to help? However, I worry he will see my savings as money that can be spent in other areas too. I do trust my husband, our marriage is great, but I also come from a divorced household and remember what my mother went through when my father left, as she had little savings or assets. If for any reason something were to happen and we end up apart, I want to know I can take care of myself and my children. But I fear that my husband may think I don't trust him or that I have plans to leave. Should I tell my husband about my rainy day fund, or is it better to keep the savings to myself as an insurance policy? Lucy.
There is a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
in that
what do you think
question.
about that?
So when I first saw the question, I just saw the basic principle of should I tell my husband about my rainy day fund? But this obviously is a slightly more complex issue here. And my instinctive reaction is probably yes, you should.
Tell the husband.
Tell the husband. Not because you should necessarily be giving him the money or allowing him access, but I think there's the principle of what underlies the marriage in terms of commitment to each other and being able to trust each other with money. Mm-hmm. I think having pots of money tucked away is no bad thing. Like, I feel like we all probably have, if we can, bits and bobs here and there. I know I've got various weird I've got some kind of post office savings account that my mum set up for me when I was put child benefit in or something. And, I probably should organise that more. And it's not that I'm keeping it a secret from my husband, but I just haven't sort of got round to organising it. Yeah. But I think...
Well, he'll find out when he listens to
I'll
this.
find out when
You
I
heard
die.
it first, Mr. Denya.
Exactly. So the broad principle, I think, on rainy day funds a lot of it depends what it's for and how much is in it. Like if it's a few £100 or a couple of £1,000s, it's not probably a life-changing amount of money, but a large life-changing sum, you probably want to communicate that you've got that. And equally, if it's money for, I don't know, maybe you're putting it aside for your children's education or something like that. If you're putting it aside because you're thinking you might want to run away at some point, then possibly there's an issue there. I think
a wider issue.
About your marriage generally. I think the thing that struck me about this question was when she said there are things that they've wanted to do and they haven't had quite enough money. That's the point where I think you go, if this is something you want to do together, then yes, to say, do you know what? I've got some money that I'd saved from before. I'd love to be able to put that money in so that we can do this thing together. Because I think a lot of this comes down to communication, that it's not like, yes, here's all my money, I'm going to give you access to it. But let's mutually decide as a couple what we want to do and whether we want to spend some of this money to do it.
Definitely.
And I understand the reader's hesitancy. Because they're she's talking about she's come from a divorced household, and she's seen how difficult it was for her mother. So it's understandable that she has these concerns, I suppose. But I guess, as you say, nothing here is suggesting that she's going to hand over control of the money. It's it's okay to have.
It's okay
your
to have
own
money. I think having like easily accessible money is a good thing. Just
of course,
because I'm always really wary of tying up any savings too much into kind of ISAs or things that I always feel like I want to have some money I could get to quickly if I needed to, if there was an emergency. And I think the principle stands. And if it's in your name and it's just easy, that's fine.
Yeah, the crucial point though, of course, is you should probably be open about it. It's okay to have, and it's okay not to want to just put it into a pool with your husband, but you probably should tell him about it. You should be open about your finances.
I think so. And then maybe even to talk a bit about what it might be for, and maybe even to be open with her husband about that issue of, do you know what, because of my background and because of what I saw with my mother, because that could have amazing positive knock-on effects for their relationship. I mean, who knows? We're going into marriage counselling at this point, but
moral money and marriage counselling.
Yeah,
all in
we
one
bring you
podcast.
everything.
But yes, the better you understand your husband or wife, the more you know about them, the more you understand why. So, as you say, if she explains, look, I didn't tell you about this, here's why. Yeah. That's only going to help their relationship because he's going to understand her perspective better.
Well, not necessarily, but you'd hope so. But betrayal comes in many forms, doesn't it? And we're talking about the fact that he might find out that she's got this rainy day fund that she's keeping in case of divorce. That's one kind of betrayal. Yeah. But if they're saving up for to send their kids to private school, or for a big holiday for their 10th anniversary, or for a bigger house or something, and they're having to change their lifestyle to be able to afford that, and meanwhile she's been sitting on a secret stash of cash, that's a much bigger issue. That's the bigger issue, I think. Because they're lying about it and they're sort of allowing him to make sacrifices.
Well, also feeling like these are things you want to do as a couple.
Yeah, for your family.
And together. He thinks we can't do them because we don't have enough money, and maybe they do. Well, possibly that's a conversation you need to have.
I mean, I guess we talked a lot about the ethics of, hiding it. What do we think she should do now? Because she is asking what she should do, whether she should tell him or keep it to herself. How does she, let's assume she decides to tell him, how does she unravel this? Have we got any ideas, Lucy?
Marriage counselling again. I think honesty from the outset, maybe it's one of those situations where you go, find a comfortable place, go to a restaurant, possibly not a restaurant, but it's communicating in the way that is not, I was keeping this from you because I don't trust you. It's about my own background and issues, and I have no idea what the dynamic of their marriage is, but I think probably honesty is the best policy here, and also accepting that he might find that quite hard to hear. It might be quite hurtful for him, because depending on how long they've been married, or how much money's in the pot, or the other things that they've sacrificed because they thought they didn't have enough money, there might be quite a few things to unpick. Like, don't necessarily expect it to be easy and to be immediately rewarded for her amazing honesty.
But I think this is not, I mean, they obviously have a specific situation here, but I think this is probably common to a lot of couples where, obviously not all couples, but some, where the man may be in a higher earning position. the woman may have taken time out of the workplace to raise the kids and might think, in case of anything, I might need easy access cash.
Yeah.
I'm not having a regular income coming in. I'm dependent on my husband for that.
Yeah.
I have to say the flip side is that probably if it came to it, in a divorce situation, it's far more likely that the man would have to give payouts to the wife, not vice versa. So he's more likely to need a rainy day fund for that situation. And in fact, I do have survey research here by a bank that found that 1 in 10 people do keep a stash of savings hidden from their partner.
Wow.
It's far more likely that men do this than women. Actually.
Yeah, obviously thinking ahead. God, that's a depressing thought, isn't it?
I think merging money is really complicated in a marriage. And I wrote about this a while ago, about how couples do their joint finances, and it was really fascinating.
What did you find?
Well, so I was sort of almost starting from my own position in that when we got married, we did this marriage prep course and we had to fill in questions on a survey which kind of crunched answers together, and we did really well apart from finance. And basically my husband was really worried I was going to spend all this money.
And have you?
We're still married. We've been married for 11 years now, and I haven't spent all his money. But it is something that, we've constantly had to challenge ourselves with, because I think a lot of the money issues are about control and fear, and it's like a big thing to commit your actual money to someone else. And so I think it's a process. But I think, things like kind of having financial summits and setting everything out and seeing what you've got in accounts and having conversations about what you're saving your money for and what the things you want to achieve with your money as a couple, as a family, can only be a helpful thing. And it does take time. I don't think it's instantaneous. I think, as you say, it shifts if you have children, if one person's earning more than another for whatever reason, which is also why those regular conversations are really helpful, because it helps you kind of keep track of where you are.
Sure. And ultimately, the important thing is there's nothing wrong. I think there's nothing wrong with having your own finances and not wanting to mix them. When this was published on the Telegraph website, Chris Brinton said, "No, you don't stop being an independent person when you get married. But don't be offended if he has a secret that you don't approve of."
Lucy, that'll be a conversation for you to have when you get home tonight.
Exactly. How much money have you got in your secret fund, darling?
That's all for today. Thank you very much to our Deputy Comment Editor, Lucy Denyer.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. If you have a moral money issue of your own, do get in touch. You can email us at moralmoney@telegraph.co.uk, or you can leave us a voicemail on 07867 162 170. You'll also find that number in the show notes of this episode.
Yep, do get in touch. We would love to hear from you to help solve your issues, or just hear what you have to say about this week's episode. Last week's show, with our brilliant special correspondent, Harry de Ketville, made many of you quite angry about splashing so much cash on expensive trainers for a 4-year-old. You might remember Harry was advising a reader who wanted to know whether he could ask another parent to stump up for damage caused by their child. Here's what you had to say.
It seems to me that toddlers ruining their clothes is part and parcel of being a toddler, so I'm not entirely sure you can justify getting the expenses back. If you are concerned about this kind of cost, I suspect the best way to approach this is not to spend £80 on a pair of toddler's trainers. I'm in my 30s and I've never even spent that much on a pair of trainers before in my life.
The cost of the trainers doesn't matter. Parents should teach their children to respect other people's property, whether it costs £80 or £8.
Hey Moral Money. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed this week's episode, and I really agreed with what Harry said about the expensive children's shoes. There's seriously no point in getting worked up about kids ruining their shoes or getting their clothes dirty. They shouldn't feel like everything that they're wearing is precious and they can't have fun in it.
Wise words there from one listener who's quite right that being a child is about having fun and not about having the latest trainers.
Absolutely. And if you want to read any of Lucy's brilliant comment pieces or any of the Telegraph's agenda-setting journalism, head to telegraph.co.uk/audio, where you can get 30 days access to the website completely free.
And thank you to those who've already left us reviews on Apple Podcasts. There's Avoyaz, Moran80, Sally Hub. Go and leave us a review if you haven't already, and we might even read some out next week, so do keep them clean.
This podcast is produced by Theodora Laludis. Subscribe to this feed to make sure you never miss an episode, and we'll be back next week with one of the journalists who broke the MP's expenses scandal a decade ago. It's the Telegraph's chief political correspondent, Christopher Hope. And of course, he'll be talking about fiddling work expenses.
See you then.
Okay, good to go. I'm going to nail it first time, so good to go.
I'm expecting you to nail it first time now. It's so embarrassing. We have to do this again. Okay. Excuse me.
That's all for today. That's all for today. Thank you very much to our deputy comment editor. What's going on? That's all for today. Thank you very much to our deputy comment editor, Lucy Denyer, for joining us.